thinking about today. Took me back to my college years. In college, I was all about science and math. Figured I'd be going into one of those fields. And I was very intrigued by entomology. So I was in this entomology class, which is the study of insects. I know it's weird. But it intrigued me because you got to take a pause and see the intricate design of God in things that were flying by you that you never noticed before, or you swatted. And so I remember being in class one day and the professor says, okay, field trip today. And I'm like, oh, geez, what are we doing? He goes, yep, we're going out to the farm. We're going to be going to a cow pasture. And we're going to be looking for dung beetles. And I'm like, oh, if there was ever a class to skip, right? And so we actually went out to the cow pastures, and you know, I grew up with my grandfather being a farmer, so it wasn't unusual. You get all the beautiful smells, the organic smells and whatnot, right? So you're out there, and he says, this is what you have to do. You go to the little cow pie. Is this too much detail? I'm thinking about this. I should have asked this after the first service. Anyways, you get out there and you take a stick and you kind of flip things over, and underneath there you see these beetles. And these beetles God designed to take all of that refuse and they roll it up and bury it in the ground. Is that cool or what? It's like recycling. It's my way of doing it. I love that. That is cool. Anyways, underneath, when you open this up, you see these beetles. They are the most beautiful beetles in the world. The colors are vibrant. They have all of these markings. They were my favorite ones in my entire collection. Why am I even saying this? I'm wondering myself right now. No, there's a point. The point is this, that sometimes the most beautiful things are hidden. They need to be unearthed a little bit to be able to see the beauty of what they are. The design of God, the beauty of the insect was all there just under the surface, but hidden to the eye. Today, my hope is this. My hope is that in this passage, we will again peel off that external layer and be able to see the beauty of God's design and his heart and his purpose. That's my hope today out of 1 John chapter 5. So let's go there. Let's look at it because there's some good things we're going to press into and hopefully uncover today. So 1 John chapter 5, verses 1 through 5 say this. Everyone who believes that Jesus is the Christ has been born of God. And everyone who loves the Father loves whoever has been born of him. By this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God and obey his commandments. For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments. And his commandments are not burdensome. For everyone who has been born of God overcomes the world. And this is the victory that overcomes the world, our faith. Who is it that overcomes the world? Except the one who believes that Jesus is the Son of God. So I want to just go out of the gate and look at the first verse, because he sets kind of this foundational stone before he really gets into the other things. He just reminds us. It's almost like he takes us back to last week to remind us what he's trying to say this week. And that is that our love for God is birthed out of God's love for us. I don't love God because it just naturally comes out of me. I love God because he first loved me. That's what it says actually in chapter 4, verse 19. It says, we love him because he first loved us. That's what stirs my love for God, is just being in the midst and experiencing his magnificent, extravagant love for me. So here we see this. There are a couple words that I want to point out, I think are really critical before we dive into these other things. 2 words. First, believe. When it says there in chapter 1, or verse 1, it says, everyone who believes that Jesus is the Christ has been born of God. When we talk about that idea of belief, is not that you know, but belief there means that you have experienced or accepted. There's a different posture here, because there are a lot of people that know about God, but not a lot of people have experienced or accepted the reality of who he is and what he has done. And that's what he's saying. He says that there's this spiritual birth that occurs when I accept Jesus' love for me. And I don't want to just blow by that, because like I've said many times, listen, you can stand in a garage and it doesn't make you a car. That's what I'm talking about. And you can come to church and not be a Christian. You can sit in church for 20 years and it does not make you a Christian. You can know about God. You can know about his love. You can all of that. And he says there is a distinction of knowing and believing. Believing leads to this knowledge of God that I've accepted, that brings a spiritual birth in my life that changes me from the inside out. And what I want you to hear today is this. Man, if you have a knowledge of God, but you've never accepted God, my prayer is that today's a day where you just do business with God and say, God, I know your love. I want to receive it. I'm going to receive it today. I'm going to accept that today. I want God to give me this spiritual birth where I become his child today. It's interesting how he forms all of this. John clarifies that our identity as a child of God comes from our spiritual birth, that then after that happens, after I encounter the love of God through this moment, that is what propels my love for God and my love for the brothers, my love for other believers. We need to get this in the right order. What I often see is it's almost like inside out, upside down. You know, you're trying to drive forward, but your car is in reverse. Have you ever done that? I've actually done that. Man, it just like freak you out. Because I was a little too close to something, so I hit it in reverse and just moved back a little bit, but then you forget to put it back in drive. And so then when you go to take off, you're expecting to go this way and you go that way. Ain't good when you have a car right behind you. Well, what happens with Christianity is sometimes we have the desire to go forward, but our car's in reverse. And what I'm saying is we're trying to love God, and we're trying to love the believers, but it's all of those things, that's our drive, right? But we have our car in reverse because it's not being birthed or born out of our understanding of God's love for us. That's what propels it. And we got into that last week, and I think it's really, really critical that we understand that our love for God is birthed out of God's love for us. So then he gets into this next section, and I love this, and I want you to hear it. Our love for God is evidenced in our obedience to God. When I say the word obedience, what comes to mind? What's the first thing that you feel? Just feel in your heart, maybe your soul, in your mind. Isn't it kind of like, yes, love it, obedience? Don't you just love it? I grew up in a very rules-oriented home and a rules-oriented church, and man, they would pull this verse out, if you love God, you will keep his commandments. Yes, sir. And it was kind of like this rules-oriented everything that I get to some extent. But it was birthed out of duty and obligation. It was not birthed out of love. And that's what he's getting at here. He continues to go down through these next two verses, and he says that the two things, first of all, that our love for God, if you truly love God, you will obey him. But the second part is that obedience to him is not a burden if you truly love him. I remember when I first started dating my wife, just a couple years ago. We're spring chickens. We were dating, and I would get invitations after work. I worked for a road crew, and they would go, hey, man, we're hanging out doing this, and we're doing that. And, my buddies would be like, hey, we're water skiing tonight, or we're doing these other things. Come on down. And I go, yeah, I can't because I'm stuck in this stupid relationship. No, I wasn't doing that. I was like, hey, man, I care about you guys, but I got something much better, that I'm spending time with my future wife. And I didn't see that as a drudgery, like, oh, well, missing out on all the fun with the guys and with all the people and the trappings of the world because I'm stuck with you. And sometimes that's the way our view of God is, like all the things. There's this sense that obedience means that I miss out on all the fun of the world, all the pleasures that could be out there, I'm going to miss because, my relationship with God, get in line, follow what he says. No, it's not about that. It's about my relationship with God is so foundationally founded on love that it's not that I have to, it's I want to. And when we start to get that, I don't serve God because I have to. I serve God because I want to. Why? Because I am overwhelmed by his extravagant love that he showed me. I am forever changed because of his love for me. Duty and obligation, obedience because of that it's tough. I don't know if you've ever done something and then murmured the whole time. I've done that, don't want to be here. Somebody sees you, I just love what I'm doing. So outside there's a compliance and inside there's a defiance. And he says, your obedience should not be compliance. Your obedience should be a service that is offered out of gratitude for this extravagant love that I have demonstrated and that you enjoy and that we foster and that we cultivate. It's interesting how he brings this all together. I was thinking of a few things. One was we got this little, we got a dog. My wife wanted this little dog, and so we got this little dog about 4 months ago. He's a 4-month-old little dog, a Yorkie Sean. Yeah. So we had a golden retriever who went to Florida with my daughter, and now we have this thing. And so this little Yorkie Sean is there, and I will go out, and I have to take like the dog to, go out and do his stuff, her stuff. So I go out distracted. I'm trying to teach it like little prompts, like potty, potty, potty. And it looks at me like, starts attacking my legs, and I'm like, potty. And then it's like, no, No. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying. I told her, keep the receipt. Literally. But obedience is a weird thing because sometimes I don't care. I just want that dog to listen. And you know what he's doing? He's taking in everything around him. You know, look at that bird. Oh, there's a rabbit. You know, all of these things. I'm like, I'm your owner. I hold the keys to your future. Look at me. When we get distracted by the things of the world and we lose sight of God's presence and we stop hearing his voice because of all the other things happening, it's the beginning of the end. That's when our love for those things becomes greater than our love for God. Because I've stopped cultivating that relationship with him. So listen, there are a couple things that I want you to hear. Number one, freedom without boundaries is chaos, and boundaries without purpose is bondage. And what I'm saying is that God doesn't ask us to do something that there's no purpose for. It isn't just like, I'm going to make your life miserable. Look at all these rules. No, there's a purpose for everything he asks us to do. And can I say this? It's a good purpose. He's not trying to ruin us, wreck us, steal from us. No, he wants the best for us. So he puts these things in place. But then boundaries, freedom without boundaries is chaos, and we've seen that. There's no boundaries in life. It's scary. You're going to have chaos and you're going to have destruction. There's going to be a lot of bad things. So our obedience to God should be born out of our understanding of God's love toward us. That relationship should be driven, should be the driving force. I've put it this way. If obedience is a sailboat, then love is the wind that drives the boat forward. It's the fuel that propels our obedience should be love, not obligation, not compliance. Let's go to the last part because I don't want to miss this. Kind of a weird ending to this whole thing. I look at these verses, I'm like, wow, that's kind of like out of the norm. I wouldn't have connected this, but he says this in verse 4. And I want you to think about the word overcome, because he uses it several times. For everyone who has been born of God, those who have accepted, believe, overcomes the world. And this is the victory that overcomes the world, our faith. Who is it that overcomes the world except the one who believes that Jesus is the Son of God? And what I see him doing in this passage is this. Our love for God is what also brings victory over the lure of the world. I think oftentimes what we do is believers is we work really hard at setting up all of these things. I'm going to put all of these things in place in my life so I'm not drawn to the trappings and the lure of this world. And the most important thing gets missed. If I am going to work on not loving the world, that is accomplished most of all by deepening my love for God. Because when I fall in love with Jesus, those things out there don't look as pleasing. I'll liken it to a marriage. And in a marriage, what happens, you have, I'll just use for illustration's sake, a husband comes up and says, I need to work on my marriage. I got all these things. I'm distracted. There's a lot of things in the world that are taking my attention, and so I gotta put all these boundaries in place, and so trying to do that to foster a good relationship with your wife, so that you're not drawn to others, outside of your marriage relationship. You know what is the greatest benefit in this? It's not all of these guards and all of these parameters and all of these things that you're putting in place are good. They're not bad. They're right. They're just not most important. You see, the most important thing is to fall in love with your wife again. To come and nurture and cultivate this incredible relationship with her so that when you're with her, and even when you're not with her, that you're consumed by her. And you go, I don't want that because I have this. So we've got to understand the same truth in our relationship with God is all the pleasures of the world, all the lure, all the little glitz and the glamour of the world will grab your attention. It will seek your affection. It will do all of that until we come and fall in love with Jesus again. And we're overwhelmed by his love for us. And we nurture this relationship and we grow in this relationship, and it will dull the draw and the lure of the world. But we do it backwards. We miss that. We start serving God because I think I just need to get more involved. You know what you do? You need to get more relationally connected with Jesus. That's the first step. It's not, don't get busy for him until you get to know him. That's what's most critical. Isn't this cool? I mean, John's just throwing it down. Come on, baby. I'm going to talk about obedience in a good way. I'm going to talk about being a victor, because this word overcomer in the Greek means to gain victory, to defeat. You're not a victim in this world, he said. If you're walking with the King, if you're nurturing your relationship with the King of Kings, with King Jesus, then you're going to see victories in your life you would have never seen. You're going to walk in a way and you're going to see God do amazing things. Why? Not because of some amazing prayer that was said one day, not because of some program, but a person that you're walking with has dramatically changed the very essence of who you are relationally and how you're navigating this world. It's powerful. Romans chapter 8 says it this way: we are more than conquerors through him, and don't miss this, who loved us. Jesus, his love brings victory. Relationally, when we walk with him, we're going to see victories we would have never seen or experienced in our life before. So I'll leave you with these three things. First of all, have you ever personally believed and accepted the gospel? The fact that sin separated you from God. Jesus came, he took on human flesh, he was born of a virgin, he lived a perfect life, he died a selfless death, sacrificially for you and I, so that we could be free from sin. That death on the cross is what paid for our forgiveness. Listen, friend, I'm just going to say this. You can know all of that, but if you haven't accepted, you haven't believed. And if you haven't believed, you're not a child of God. You don't have the blessing of his promises. Why? Because you just know about it. You need to accept it. You need to believe it. I hope today you will say, Jesus, I don't want to be someone who knows about you. I want to accept your love in this place today. I'm going to accept you. I'm going to put my faith and my trust in what you did on the cross to save me from my sin and give me a home in heaven. You declare that today, the God of heaven will honor it today. Second thing is serving God to you a duty or a blessing? Man, that's a good one to ponder, because there have been many days that it was a duty. I get up and I'm like, this Christian thing is kind of tough, man. You know, You kind of get into your thing and you just feel like it's just so heavy. Why? Because I'm walking, doing all these things for God without God. And I've walked away from the relationship to try to honor the God that he didn't want my stuff. He wants me. So I come back here and I foster this and I deepen that. It changes everything. But it starts with that question, is serving God a duty or a blessing? And is it birthed out of your love for him and his love for you? And then the last one was, are you still wowed by the love of God? I'm going to be married 35 years this summer. I know I don't look that old. I appreciate your laughter. But sometimes what we do in life is we just celebrate this, accomplishment of time. I don't want to just get to 35 years and get my badge, my 35-year badge, and say, I made it. I want to enjoy it. I don't know about you, but man, I got a girl I want to invest in. I want to spend time with. I want to do life with. I want to grow old with. And the only way that happens is if I invest in that relationship. So we ask, we will always serve the thing we love the most. And so we come back and go, do I love God greater than anything else? Nurture that relationship with him. And so, Father, in this place, may we declare today that we don't want to be a people who are just following out of compliance or duty. We want to be a people who is serving you out of a love, out of understanding this extravagant love that you've poured out on us that we still have not gotten over. We are wowed by you. God, help that never to go away. And so, God, we give you glory in this place today. Help us continue to nurture and walk with you in the beauty of who you are. In Jesus' name, amen.